Well, first news topic, actually just a reaction to Summer Games Fest, which occurred last night, despite the fact that I sent a Terminator back in time to eliminate the person who came up with the word fest, which in turn may have actually created the word fest based on Terminator lore. But anyway, John.
Yes.
Rather helpfully, you watched the whole thing and put together a list of games that you found interesting. So let's begin with this list of... I mean, it's actually a bit of a hashtag content light Jeff Con this time around. Well, I guess there's a lot of content, but you didn't find much of it interesting.
Well, that's not 100% true. There's plenty of stuff that's interesting in there, but there's only like a select amount that I felt was worth mentioning here on DF Direct Weekly, right?
Right.
So, okay.
I agree with that.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Let's kick off with Resident Evil Requiem. John, this looks pretty awesome, right?
Yeah. So this has been long rumored, obviously, and people were expecting it to show up, which is why I loved the Capcom trolling that occurred, where they sort of came in and said, "Yeah, we're celebrating the Resident Evil 30th anniversary here. This is great. For those interested in the next Resident Evil, we'll have more to say on it soon." And then he jumps off. And so everybody's like, either, wait, what? Or, oh, is it going to be at the Xbox show? Like, it genuinely worked. It created that confusion. And then at the end of the show, they dropped the trailer, which was great.
Oh, cool.
So it was a fun sort of thing. It sort of teases back to when RE7 was revealed, if you recall, where it was sort of like, I was at the E3 there when it was revealed. It was like Kitchen was that PSVR demo they showed off.
Right.
And then they're like bringing back Project Kitchen or whatever. And then at the end, like the letters turn into Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. And it was like, oh, it was a big surprise, right? And I feel like they tried to do something similar here with this reveal. And including with the references. So it seems like Grace Ashcroft, the daughter of, I think it was Alyssa, basically a character that was in like one of the Resident Evil or Biohazard Outbreak games, the online PS2 games being mentioned here. So they're kind of doing a deep cut here at the beginning. I was actually expecting, based on rumors and other things, that Leon would be the main character, and that actually may still be the case. But this is sort of like the initial setup for the game. But we're not necessarily here to talk about the story. We're here to talk about the tech, because this is the first Resident Evil game that has been developed for current generation consoles from the beginning, I guess you could say. There may have been a PS4 version at some point, who knows? But as it is, it seems like this is probably going to be a current gen only game. So it kind of gives us a peek at what they can do with RE Engine going forward, running a proper RE game. And right away, they're bringing the character model heat, as they always do. I feel like this is Capcom's artists and tech team at work, along with the engine. Just they're some of the best in the biz when it comes to producing character models. I feel like they just look freaking great always. The hair rendering as well is excellent here. Everything about it is just awesome. Plus they're showing, smooth animation, good acting, good lighting, shading. Like everything looks really like well rooted in the environment in a way. Like when they show her desk with all the monitors and the books and everything just looks properly in place. So I'm really liking what we're seeing there. Of course, it's still targeting 60 FPS. Hopefully that's not a bad thing, and that they can actually hit the target, because we know that wasn't always true if you look at like Monster Hunter Wilds and Dragon's Dogma 2.
Right.
But I think this is a smaller scope game, so I'm not sure that'll be an issue. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's really just a very early look at some of the scenery and stuff that you can expect in the game, and it does look pretty cool. The setting looks really nice. And I'm thinking we're definitely seeing some nice improvements over what they had done in the past with RE Engine in various Resident Evil games. The lighting especially just looks superb, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you make of this, Alex?
Well, I was looking through the trailer originally. I wasn't sure if this was actually Resident Evil because of the intro of it, but then it kind of became clear when got a little bit later on. And like you, I really thought the hair rendering was done really well on the main character, the woman. the Ashcroft lady
Grace,
that you were just talking about, Grace. Especially when her hair inverts when she's being held in some sort of horrific torture device at some point in the trailer. Usually, like when hair is constrained to a certain degree, you don't want it to be, just to make sure it doesn't flop in weird ways, you constrain it to like a certain like angle away from the head that it can never go. And here it actually can fully invert. And that's pretty rare to see in anything. So that was really cool to see. One thing I was on the lookout for was better ray tracing than they've had before, because I don't know, the RE Engine games, they do some things really well, and I'm always really happy that they're pushing in this direction, but their ray tracing has been just like really low quality for a while, as well as their SSR. But the only really good evidence I could see of it in the trailer was they could have faked it, but like the reflection on her glasses in the beginning, where you can see the reflection of the monitor right in them. That was pretty cool. That could be done in other ways, obviously, but as well as later on when they show that hallway with the curtain kind of having the wind make it draft in. A little bit hard to tell because of the camera angle there, but it didn't break up horribly like we would see with like the previous SSR, and it didn't have like a kind of not so great look as their previous RT implementation have had. They did say they were iterating on those things when they showed off their next version of their RE engine in those presentations they had published on their channel not too long ago. So I'm hoping that's what we're going to be seeing here, but I don't know. There isn't much other information here. Do you think this will be a first-person title, John? Or a third person?
I'm not. If Leon's the main character, I think it's going to be third person.
Right.
Because I feel like they wouldn't do a Leon knowing how popular he is in first person. It would anger people. Plus in Japan, the first person stuff wasn't as well received.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it's hard to say what they're going to do yet. You really can't tell from this trailer.
Yeah.
What I do like though is like the towards the end of the trailer, we get that sort of bombed out look at Raccoon City, including the peek at the police station from Resident Evil 2.
Right.
But it's like completely just ruined. And so, but before that, they kind of showed like a zoomed out view of the whole city with like a crater and everything in the north, everything. So I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of like not open world per se, but like a larger open environment than before, you know, like the whole city to explore. I don't know. I'm curious to see.
For sure.
I really love the hair rendering. I mean, we saw some of that in Pragmata as well, which we'll talk about a bit later. It does seem to me, though, that they do seem to be reducing gravity slightly to make the hair bump sort of
maybe,
cascade.
They could. Yes.
Lots of hairspray.
It just looks slightly odd to me, but the rendering does look fantastic. What can I say? You know, Capcom are just knocking it out of the park, left, right, and center. I mean, of all of the third-party developers this generation, obviously we've got issues with some of the stuff that's happened, particularly on PC, but they're just sort of consistently delivering great game after great game. I think, you know, they're on a run here, and I think also in terms of, from what we understand, in terms of the size of the development teams and such like, you know, they're also a really efficient outfit as well. So, you know, the fact that they're able to consistently deliver this output and the quality, and we're seeing the the RE engine actually potentially just being sort of current gen only at this point. Great things to come, I think. I'm really excited by this. Let's move on. Let's talk about Mortal Shell 2, which, I mean, basically exactly the kind of sort of action of what I'd like to do to the person that invented the word fest from start to finish. This is like brutally violent, but looks fantastic, right, John?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned this because it's kind of a running joke with how Tom is always assigned Mortal Shell. He spends many hours in Mortal Shell, and it is actually a pretty decent game. But of all the Souls-likes they showed during this show, I feel like this one was perhaps the most visually striking. Like, it's got a very monochromatic design that actually it's extremely hyper detailed, but like really it looks good. Like, you're like, oh wow, this looks beautiful. In addition to the rather violent but superb animation work they're doing on all these enemy deaths, which again I thought just looked phenomenally good. It just made a good impression on that amongst the many other Souls likes we saw today. and
So
there
many
were a lot.
Souls-like.
And I love Soul style games, but yeah, there's a lot. This one though this looks intriguing, and I really like the way everything's drawn and lit. It has this very realistic look to it, yet still fantastical. I feel like too many games of this show had what I call like Fortnite syndrome, where they kind of look, they have like pseudo realistic characters, but it's like a little stylized and cartoony, and it just ends up looking not good to my eye. Like it's just kind of boring. This doesn't have that at all. this more reminds me of, like, I guess what Blue Point did with the Demon Souls remake, instead of that focus on the hyper fine detail everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Very crunchy looking.
I've never seen a killer snail in a game before.
Oh,
Alex, this must be Unreal Engine 5. Right?
That's what I was thinking. The last title was a switch off title where it was tail end of UE4, and they pushed quite a lot of features. It had DLSS, it had like even RT in it, I believe, on PC. Tom was covering that one. I did not cover the Mortal Shell, even though I think I complained about it once on what is formerly known as Twitter, when I loaded up the game and it doesn't start with VSync on, and it made my PSU explode, my power supply explode.
Wow.
But so that's my experience with Mortal Shell. But Mortal Shell 2 does look pretty good. I'm hoping it is UE5, and given the release date of this, I'm really starting to hope a lot of games, we get over this era where we were seeing a lot of games publishing on like 5.2, 5.3. I really hope that people, given what we've seen so far with the advances in 5.5 and 5.6, that a lot of developers see those as worthwhile upgrades and spend the time to integrate a number of the changes that those versions of the engine offer. Because if it comes out at some point in the future with like a 5.3 or 5.4 version, we'll end up just seeing a lot of the same issues we see in almost every Unreal Engine game, and that would be a shame. So I don't know the exact publishing date of this, but one thing I hope for any UE5 game is that it uses the latest version of the engine possible.
Mm-hmm. I'm just loving this. I'm just watching this trailer through again. In fact, I'm just watching it through for the third time because I'm guessing these are like finishing moves that we're seeing here.
Your glory kill.
Particularly like the guy with the extendable chin that gets beaten to death with his own chin.
It is very Doom 2016 in that aspect.
Yeah.
Or God of War.
Happy days for Tom when he comes to review this, because it looks hilarious. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was all pretty cool, but let's move on. We're back to Capcom again, John. Onimusha, Way of the Sword.
That's right.
Again, just quality start to finish.
Like, you look at this and you're like, yeah, this is just going to be a good-ass video game, and I expect it will. Onimusha has, they've been doing the remaster releases. They just redid Onimusha 2, actually.
Right.
Which I have to admit I did briefly look at that, and I don't love the way it looks. Like, the backgrounds aren't actually all that improved, so it's kind of low res looking. I think it looks better running on a PS2.
I agree with you there, John.
Wow.
But, we've kind of been waiting for a new installment, or at least I have. I love these games, especially the third and fourth ones. The one with Jean Reno being the third one, which is just phenomenally crazy. What I liked in this new trailer, though, of course, RE Engine, of course, I'd imagine. They actually brought back the boss Osric, it looks like, from the very first Onimusha, and kind of shows you fighting him in that footage, which I thought looked really cool, along with various other scenes. And this looks like, the RE Engine kind of visual style that we all know and love, which is to say it looks great, but not necessarily pushing new boundaries. But
right.
I think it's just that strong art direction, and it's probably going to be an excellent game, given Capcom's track record these days, as we were just saying.
They don't.
So just based on that, like, I'm excited to play another Capcom sort of hack and slash style game. And I think in this modern era, based on what we're seeing here, it'll feel a little more separate from Resident Evil, because if you go back to Onimusha 1 and 2 especially, fundamentally they were kind of like classic Resident Evil games, except for its sword combat instead of like guns. I mean, less survival horror-y, of course, but you're still like running around pre-rendered backgrounds You're getting objects that allow you to proceed through different areas, solving puzzles. It's that kind of thing. This maybe takes some Souls like elements, but I'm not sure. Yet it still seems to be its own thing. So more character action based. Either way, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing, of course, is the game doesn't really need to actually push technical boundaries.
Nope.
If you're like fully competent and all aspects of the game are executed competently, and you've got great art direction, and you've got great gameplay, well, what more do you actually need? And I think that's pretty much what we're seeing here. Hopefully,
Yep.
Not sure which version we're actually seeing here, but Capcom seem to just deliver on all platforms to the best of their ability based on what we've seen so far. So, yep, I think this one's going to be pretty cool. Again, we're not really done with Capcom. We got more Capcom to talk about later. But this one really stood out, right, John? Felt that boxing.
Gosh.
This was just like remarkable, right?
Okay, so this ended up being one of the biggest surprises of the show and one of the most visually striking. And that it's essentially like a boxing story about effectively Muppets. Not actually Muppets, but like they're Muppets, right? But my goodness, this has to be some of the most realistic rendering I've ever seen, in that what you're looking at looks like actual like puppets moving around, and the features in the environment and the objects featured throughout, also they did a phenomenal job with the material stuff.
Right.
Just the way it's all lit, the way it moves, it just looks insane. Like I absolutely love the visual style. And it seems like it's kind of like a weird adventure-y Punch-Out game, kind of.
Yes.
That's it. It looks like Punch-Out, yeah.
Also, the camera work that they showed during some of the Punch-Out stuff, really good. The combination of like the movement, the animation of the characters with the motion blur specifically. Like if you didn't have motion blur in here, this game would look much less good. This is a perfect example of why we like motion blur. It is what allows it to look very realistic,
right?
So plus just the movement of it. Man, I'm just looking at it again now, and I'm freaking loving this thing. I don't know how it's going to play, and it's also interesting that despite the kind of genre, it only seemed to mention it was Steam, so PC only right now.
Wow.
So Alex, I mean,
the developers have been making this for a long time. I remember seeing demos.
I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, back then, I didn't know it was a boxing game. I've seen, because the way I think the animation is done is like the equivalent of like holding move sticks, like PlayStation move sticks in front of a camera, and that like animates the character so it looks like hands are controlling it, like in this like loose way. And then the thing that sells it is like the incredible animation of the hair on the Muppets,
secondary animations.
Yeah, and obviously the lighting, the backlighting, and everything, and the motion blur is really great. But I didn't know what it was for a long time. I thought it was just some weird guy who likes making Muppets in Unreal Engine. But it turns out it's a game apparently, and I'm interested in it. I mean, I haven't played a Punch-Out style game in I don't know how long, so that could be interesting in its own right. But it's also cool to see people try different aspects of rendering out. We see a lot of realistic characters, but I don't know if I've ever seen a realistic Muppet in a video game before. So that made me excited. I was also, they got a lot of screen time for what is essentially a Muppet boxing game. A lot of trailer time there. So bravo to the people who allowed that to be on stage for so long.
This is why boxing games are like, you remember when they first showed Fight Night Round 3 for Xbox 360?
Yeah, it was
my brain exploded.
That's the same feeling I'm getting here, like 20 years later, only with Muppets.
That game is just so insane. We should one day somehow do a DF Retro aspect for that, because that reveal
I agree
was ridiculous. Yeah,
that was a stunner, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I remember I was actually at Criterion Games looking at, I think, Burnout Revenge.
For 360
when I first saw that. Yeah, the 360 version. Yeah, and they were playing that in the office, the demo that had come out, and it was like, okay, this is looking quite impressive. Returning to Felt That Boxing, Alex, real time? Do you think?
Yes.
Pre-rendered in any way?
I think it's real time, all of it. From everything I've seen about this person, they only show off real time stuff. So.
Wow, because it is looking very, very CG movie like.
They have the power of the PC behind them.
Yeah, they can just throw a 5090 behind it, I guess. So
do what they want.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, let's move on. Now, the final game you've chosen, John, Mina the Hollower, which...
Do you have any idea what this is?
Pretty good.
No.
Rich?
Do tell.
Okay, so are you familiar with Shovel Knight?
Sure. Mhm.
It was a great game, but it's been around a long time, re-released many times. Those guys have taken a very long time, but they've been working on a new game for years, and this is it. We've seen it before, and it finally got a release date of October 31st, 2025.
Oh yeah.
And like, I think these guys are among the best at doing pixel art style, like classic games that feel suitably retro, but still offer something that feels fresh and interesting. Like, they're not just slavishly copying games that exist. They're doing really just great design work. And like Shovel Knight was sort of an homage to Mega Man style platformers, Mina seems to be kind of an homage to like Game Boy Zelda a little bit, but obviously with a lot of its own mechanics and pushing, way beyond that. But it's kind of a unique amalgamation of styles where it doesn't necessarily look like it belongs to any classic genre or generation of consoles. It's just, this is their style of pixel art, and I think it looks awesome. Plus, presumably, we got to hear a track from Jake Kaufman, who is one of the best like chiptune composers of all time, but has been
sounds amazing.
sorely absent for years for various reasons, as I understand. And I'm very excited to hear something from him again, and that as well is exciting. So in terms of just raw ass video games, this is video games, the video game for me. So I'm very excited to play it, even if this isn't about the tech. This is what they do. They do a great job implementing classic style pixel art with a style that feels unique to them, and I like that.
So
Cool.
I can't recall, how does Shovel Knight actually, because I'm curious about how they actually get these really low resolution graphics on a modern screen. Do they actually set when they send it to your display, like on a console version of the game? Is it like 1080p and then they internally upscale, or do you know how they do it at all?
That's how most of these retro games work. That's the same that we did with RZ and everything, where the assets are drawn at a low pixel resolution, but then sort of like scaled up to match whatever the output is to your screen, presumably with either a very, very subtle interpolation or nearest neighbor, depending on how it scales. And that's what you're doing essentially.
Yeah,
so
looks crisp.
It's just, yeah, exactly. They just want to present it with super sharp pixels.
Right. So how does that work then? You basically author with the idea that your presentation will be on like a 1080p grid. And you've got basically a nearest neighbor 4K upscale option available.
It can be like you target like a virtual resolution of like 384 by 224 or something, or just some kind of resolution like that, right? And you're just scaling it up. That's it. So you're making things at a low resolution, but then scaling it up when on output to give it that look. So
not bad.
Okay. So it's all about basically clean dividers to your output resolution then.
Exactly. Or doing a very subtle interpolation, which still produces sharp pixels, but it prevents any sort of shimmering or weirdness, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's talk quickly about the actual show itself, John. I haven't had the chance to view it yet, but final sort of thoughts basically on the whole thing. What do you think?
Well, first of all, did you see Jeff's sneakers?
I didn't see anything of Jeff.
Oh man,
I was on Jeff Con 5,
he
not
was
on Jeff Con 1.
He was rocking some golden, what seemed to be well over $700 sneakers, which were pretty snazzy, along with a suit. So he's doing the thing. The show. It's weird to talk about these shows, right? I think he does a good job at presenting what he's got. You know what I mean? Putting together a show like this is no small feat with all these publishers involved. It is different from the press conferences of old, where it was like you would have a platform holder specifically holding the show, right? And that would tend to focus more on specifically what's coming to their platform. They already have these relationships. I mean, Jeff does as well, but stuff in place. And this is just one man and his company trying to bring all this stuff together. It's pretty tough, but so there's not anything like really surprising that usually comes out of these, but there is just a fair few amount of just nice looking games. There's some of the stuff that was a little bit odd was like they showed Death Stranding 2, for instance, but it was just a random cutscene,
Right.
which to me says like, okay, Jeff probably wanted something from Kojima for the show, but Kojima has probably spent his time making whatever launch trailer they have, and they just needed to pick something to show here. So I guess that's why they went with it.
Yeah, I think there's actually a separate presentation happening with Death Stranding
okay, that would make sense.
And to be fair, that kind of makes sense, right? I think the challenge facing Jeff is basically in the digital age. Why should you actually present your shiny new game alongside 20, 30 other shiny games?
Give
when
it
you can just
more room.
define your own period
so that's actually a big problem, I would say, with these types of presentations, especially when you have like there's 6 Souls likes shown in a row. It's hard.
Right.
How do you leave an impression on the audience? You know what I mean? So whenever, because I feel like at some point the way the games are revealed, things just start to blend together in a way.
It's very long.
That's
Mortal Shell did a good job. Killer snails beating somebody's death with their own
so
extended
violent
chin.
that the audience gasps. And the one thing I liked about this, I did not watch it in real time like John probably did.
I did not watch it in real time.
I was thumbing through it. Okay, good. But I did like at the end, even though the games didn't necessarily interest me, there was a bit at the end where there was like longer form videos of devs talking about their games.
That's cool.
That's respectable. I did not have the time to sit down and watch them all, but if I was interested in the genre of game and the game, that would be perfect for me to get to hear from the developers what they are about, their style, and what the game's going to be. So I really appreciated that bit. It makes sense that it's at the end, of course, because I think a lot of people are tuning away because they wanted to see the big trailers or something like that. But so I respect Jeff for allowing that kind of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I always really like the pre-hype. I mean, somebody was apparently tracking Gabe's yacht, suggesting that his yacht had left Seattle and was heading to Los Angeles.
I was like, he's stuck in the Strait of Gibraltar. No!
That would have been quite a detour, Alex, to be fair.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. I think people were expecting Half-Life 3 for some reason because of rumors and stuff, and Jeff's relation with I guess Gabe and the Half-Life series in general, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't like to put those big expectations. I saw a lot of disappointment, like, there's not enough of the big stuff. Where's my GTA 6? Where's my Half-Life 3? And I'm just like, there's no reason. Like, if you get that stuff, great, but like to expect that from a show like this, that's a bit unrealistic, I feel.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great that there is actually time for titles to have their chance to shine, so to speak. Because otherwise, maybe some of this stuff would have been overlooked, and you could actually apply that to the state of play, which we'll talk about shortly.
So, Rich, if you had to rate Jeff Con, does it get the full Jeff Con 5, or is it more like Jeff Con 3?
Isn't it Jeff Con? Jeff Con 1 would surely be the most urgent.
That's true. Jeff Con 1 is the most urgent, of course. So, what do you give it? Is it all the way down at Jeff Con 1?
Well, Jeff Con 1 would be the top score, surely.
Yes.
That's the point. That's
what I'm saying. I'm still saying in an order of numbers, even though that is the best or the most urgent, I'm still saying it's down, from 5.
Ah, okay.
It's like putting the pedal down to the floor. You go faster, right?
Okay. I didn't watch the show, so I can't really comment. But looking on your edited highlights, there was some good stuff in there, right? I mean, it's just not the sort of AAA bangers that people were maybe expecting. Just a whole bunch of quote unquote, as you described earlier, interesting games.
All that back and forth just for you to say, "Well, I didn't watch the show, so I don't know."
Yeah,
I at least wanted you to comment on Jeff's suit and.
Well, you're better suited to actually attach a Jeff Con rating to it.
That's true. I'll give it a Jeff Con 2.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Good. Okay,
I think it's not a bad show. Although there was a better show this week, which perhaps we should get to in a moment.
Yeah, but first of all, Alex, do you have a Jeff Con rating, or are you bowing out like I am?
Well, I mean, I didn't watch it in full, and I don't even remember what Jeff was wearing, unlike John. So I think that gives it like a Jeff Con 3 at that point.
Okay.
Jeff Con 1 for the trainers, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
These trainers are officially at Jeff Con 1. Okay.